It's time for On Point, where we speak to experts to delve deeper into some of the key issues in the spotlight right now. Continuing from our top story on North Korea's nuclear activities, on another front, countries are trying to pressure the North to guarantee basic rights for its people. Now, many may not know this, but one of the biggest differentiating factors between conservatives and progressive governments in South Korea is the two sides' approach to North Korea.
And one tangible piece of evidence to support this is the fact that last month, the Conservative Yoon government appointed a new envoy for global cooperation on North Korean human rights. And this particular post, established in 2016, had been vacant for the last 5 years of the former Moon Jae-in government. So before we get any further, we have none other than the newly appointed envoy, Professor Shin-wha, who's also teaching political science at Korea University. She joins us today to discuss her new role further. Very good morning to you, Professor Lee. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. And
Thank you for having me.
First of all, we're very excited to hear that this position has been restored, as are many global observers. So could you first explain to us what your job entails, and as many may not know yet, what kind of authority or responsibilities you have as South Korea's global coordination envoy for North Korean human rights?
Okay, well, to begin with, my title, actually my exact title is not only the North Korean Human Rights Ambassador, but the Ambassador of International Cooperation on North Korean Human Rights. It's a rather long title, but this ambassadorship is one of a few non-resident unpaid ambassadorship for foreign affairs under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that assigns the title of ambassador to persons with expertise and recognition in each field, like such as the human rights, things like this, or climate change and global security, so that they can engage in diplomatic activities. So for my job, core issue of North Korean Human Rights Act that was enacted in 2016, that includes the appointment of the ambassador and the establishment of the North Korean Human Rights Foundation, and so on. So the first ambassador of this job was appointed in September 2016, but since then no one was appointed in consideration of the inter-Korean relations after 1-year term under the Moon Jae-in administration. So for the first time in 5 years, I was appointed to fill this position. That was last week.
Right, now let's get deeper into your perspective as you take on this role. Do you think there needs to be a harsher stance taken on the Kim Jong-un regime, especially when it comes to protecting the rights of North Koreans?
Let me answer this way. As we know, the promotion of human rights is a universal value of humankind that should not be compromised for any reason, including the nature of the regime or its political purposes. So in broadly speaking, in that perspectives, the direction of this job should be considered into two major big factors. On one hand, accountability. On the other hand, the international involvement. The first, accountability, is to record the human rights situation in North Korea and preserve it as an official document. This is to make it possible to use in the future, even if it is impossible to investigate or punish the perpetrator or person in charge right now. And I believe it can be a good warning to those who perpetrate human rights violation. As you may recall, according to the report of the UN Commission of Inquiry in COI, human rights violation by North Korean regime and the issue of accountability are clearly stated in that report. The second is the international involvement or international engagement that also have two aspects. One is assertive involvement with the international community, including the United Nations. The Korean government should take an active and leading role in internationalizing or globalizing the North Korean human rights issue with a consistent stance on the protection of human rights as a universal value for the mankind. As you may know, the Korean government has been silent on the UN resolution on human rights in North Korea for 3 years from 2019. I think this was a shame. Therefore, I welcome and support Minister Park Jin's statement that Korea government will co-sponsor resolution on North Korean human rights issue at this year's UN Human Rights Commission. Another aspect of international engagement is a so-called constructive engagement with North Korea. That means to include the humanitarian aid to the North Korea's international engagement activities. If we emphasize only the accountability described above, the relationship with North Korean may become strained and nothing can be done. So I believe the goal is to find the optimal point for human rights improvement by appropriately mixing sanctions and support under the firm principle of accountability, because improving the practical standard about living of North Korean ordinary people is a very important way to promote human rights. Of course, I mean humanitarian aid to the extent that it does not violate UN and international sanctions against the North Korean due to the North Korean nuclear issue.
Well, Ambassador, well, it sounds like there's quite a number of things on your plate. I mean, very unfortunately, human rights violations in North Korea is systematic and very much embedded all across society, beginning with civil rights and, of course, political prison camps. But are there any particular areas of North Korea human rights that you wish to tackle or focus on as a priority area?
First is the first is at the domestic level. I think, I would like to join the efforts to launch the North Korean Human Rights Foundation. Although the North Korean Human Rights Act of 2016 I mentioned specified regulations for its establishment, there is a big problem that it is still neglected. So establishing a foundation is implementing the law. So it's very important. For that, I think I would like to cooperate with the various government ministries and communicate with members of the ruling and opposition parties. And also the second is the international level. Cooperation with the United States is very important. At the US and Korean summit last May, the two leaders shared serious concerns about human rights in North Korea. In the case of the United States, since Robert King, who served as special envoy for human rights in North Korea from 2009 to 2017, pretty long time. As he resigned in 2017, it is still vacant. President Biden has not kept his promise to appoint a special envoy after taking office, and even if he does, the bill must pass the Senate. So I hope the U.S. can also appoint a special envoy as soon as possible to discuss ways to cooperate. And close cooperation with the United Nations is also essential. Even during the period when the position of ambassadors or special envoys for North Korean human rights were vacant in Korea and the United States, the United Nations continued to maintain the position of special rapporteur on human rights. As a matter of fact, new rapporteur Elizabeth Salmon began her term yesterday and will have her first meeting with me tonight, although it's online. So while the terms of the representatives of Korea and the UN have started similarly, I hope that the special US envoy will be appointed as soon as possible for trilateral cooperation. So I would like to be vocal about this important issue.
Well, many international observers are very pleased to have seen that you have filled this position, Ambassador. So, well, we really wish you luck with everything. Thank you so much for your time this morning, and we hope to be able to speak to you again soon.
Thank you very much, and sorry about my coughing.
Oh, no worries at all. Have a lovely day. Thank you, Ambassador.
Thank you.
Thank you.